The Miami Marlins won 79 games this year, a year in which most projections thought they would lose 100 games. The Marlins utilized a simple trick to gain a few extra wins this year, and it doesn't even involve any transactions, any trades, any money, it's just switching two players on defense. On May 31st, they took Xavier Edwards, their starting shortstop, and moved him to second base, while Otto Lopez, their starting second baseman, moved to shortstop. Before May 31st, they had a record of 22-33, 11 games below 500. After May 31st, they had a record of 57-50. This improvement is not a coincidence, and some of it has to do with this switch. It's been proven that this simple trick works, but the crazy part is that several teams in MLB now and in the past are too afraid to do it. And to figure out why, we need to look into the numbers. By the way, most of you watching this are not subscribed, so if you enjoyed the video I would appreciate it, as it's the best way to support the channel. You might have heard shortstop referred to as the captain of the infield before, but why? Well, it got that title for a reason. A couple of reasons actually. The first one being the volume of opportunities that they get on defense. Here's a graph that shows the proportion of ground balls hit to each infield position since 2008. Every single year, shortstop has been on top. Second base and third base are fighting for second place, while first base is firmly in last. It isn't a coincidence that first base is often referred to as the easiest position on defense, or where someone who isn't a good defender often finds himself. The main separator between shortstop and first base is the fact that a shortstop has to make a lot more plays, so the defender there is much more important. The second reason is the difficulty of plays. There are two things that go into most infielder opportunities: the range to get to the ball and the throw to get it to the proper base. At shortstop, you need both, the range to get there and the arm to finish the play. Second base is more focused on range, the throws you make are a lot shorter, and at third base, the range isn't as important. When you combine these two factors, this leaves us with a large span of possible outcomes for shortstop's defensive value. This year, the least valuable shortstop on defense was Bo Bichette. He was worth -10 fielding run value, basically saying that he allowed 10 more runs to score than if the Blue Jays had a league average defender at shortstop. The best was Bobby Witt Jr., who was worth +21. That's a huge difference of 31 runs just based off of shortstop defense alone. Let's look at shortstop defense over the past 3 years. Here's the distribution of all qualified shortstops' defensive value. If we take the bottom 5 defenders, they on average are worth -16.6 runs on defense. The top 5 defenders on average are worth 30 runs on defense. The difference between the average top 5 shortstop and bottom 5 shortstop is 47 runs, or roughly 16 per year. That's a pretty big difference, and one that will have a significant effect on the win and loss record come the end of the season. If we do the same exercise for first base, you get a difference of roughly 9 runs per year. This means that you aren't losing as much value if you have a poor defender, but you also aren't gaining as much if you have a great defender. Second base has an average difference of 14 runs, and third base has an average difference of 12 runs. As you can see, defense at shortstop is the most important. Good defenders get rewarded, and bad defenders get heavily punished, which is why it's often a good idea to put the best infield defender on the team at shortstop. But teams don't do that. There are plenty examples of teams doing the exact opposite actually. Their best infielder is playing second base or third base, while a below average defender is at the shortstop position. Front offices know the numbers that I just talked about, I hope. Well, at least one team does, and that team is the Miami Marlins. The 2024 Miami Marlins were not exciting to watch. They lost 100 games, though one of their lone bright spots was their young shortstop Xavier Edwards. He hit to a .328 average, .820 OPS, and had a WRC plus of 129 over 70 games, also stealing 31 bases. What made these numbers pop even more was the fact that he was taking over for the recently DFA'd Tim Anderson, who was one of the worst players in the league. He quickly became one of, if not the Marlins' best player going into the 2025 season. It was a no-brainer to keep him at shortstop, right? Why would they move this rising star out of that position? Well, through Edwards' first 41 games at shortstop in the 2025 season, he was struggling on defense, and he had done the same in 2024. He had -7 outs above average in just 41 games in 2025. In 2024, over the 70 games, he had -10. He was the worst defensive shortstop in that time span. Meanwhile, the Marlins had Otto Lopez as their starting second baseman. Lopez didn't get as much hype as Edwards did for his 2024 campaign. He wasn't as productive as a hitter, having an OPS in the 600s and a WRC plus of 92. Though where he lacked offensively, he more than made up for it with his defense at second. He had 16 outs above average, which was the third best that season, behind only Andres Gimenez and Marcus Semien. In the first 2 months of the 2025 season, Lopez picked up right where he left off. He had 6 outs above average at second base. So clearly, the Marlins have themselves an obvious move to make. You have 2 players that are playing every day, one at second and one at short. One is one of the best defenders in the league, and the other is one of the worst defenders in the league. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out which one should be playing the harder position of shortstop. Here's a hint, it's not Xavier Edwards. On May 31st this season, after Edwards returned from a short IL stint, it was decided that he would become the full-time second baseman, while Lopez would shift to short. And unsurprisingly, it did not take long for this move to pay off for the Marlins. In the 97 games that Edwards played at second base this year, he was not only much improved from his shortstop defense, he was one of the better second basemen in the league. He recorded 9 outs above average, which was the third most behind only Nico Horner and Andres Gimenez. This doesn't even take into account that Edwards played just under 100 games there. Lopez continued to be solid at his new position, posting 4 outs above average at shortstop. So before the switch, the duo was worth -1 outs above average combined. After the switch, they were worth 13 outs above average combined. This is an increase of 14 outs, and expanding that over a full season, this move would have given them roughly 23 extra outs if they had done this for 162 games. According to StatCast, each one of these extra outs is worth around 0.75 runs prevented on defense, meaning that over the course of a full season, this move was worth roughly 17 runs for the Marlins. According to Bill James's Pythagorean win-loss expectation, that translates to 2 extra wins for the Marlins. 2 wins can mean a lot. Just ask the Mets. I'm sorry, Mets fans. Not just the Mets though, ask the Giants or the Astros. They would do anything to have gotten 2 extra wins somewhere along the way this year. But why was this switch so effective? Really, it comes down to the type of players that the Marlins were dealing with. Edwards has great athleticism, he has above average sprint speed, and has stolen over 50 bases in his career already, though he's lacking in the arm department. His arm strength on competitive throws is 75.5 miles per hour, which is in the 7th percentile. This is not quite fit for the shortstop position and is much better suited at second base, which is why it isn't a huge surprise to see Edwards not just improve when he went to second, but really start to shine on defense. If it was the other way around and he was lacking range but had the arm, maybe a move to third base could have been helpful. Why don't other teams follow suit? Well, this quote from Marlins manager Clayton McCullough might provide some hints to why. I think X is a team guy, and we feel like for X, I think this is just better for our team right now, and do think, even for him long term, this will be a good fit for him as we continue to move forward. He's good with making that change over there, and I feel like it's going to pay dividends and help us win games. This kind of move is objectively and obviously beneficial to the team and the players involved, but sometimes other things can get in the way, whether it's the player not wanting to give up the shortstop position or the team not wanting to essentially admit defeat in developing a shortstop, even when it's causing them to lose more games over the course of a season, and it's not hard to find examples of this recently. If you were really paying attention earlier in the video, you may have caught some not so subtle foreshadowing. As I said before, Bo Bichette was the worst defensive shortstop in the league this year, while their starting second baseman Andres Gimenez has been one of the best infield defenders for years now. But it gets even deeper than that. The Blue Jays also have Ernie Clement primarily playing third base, who's also an elite defender and has played shortstop in the past. It's also worth noting that Bichette, in the past, has never had a season in which he was an above-average defensive shortstop other than in the shortened 2020 season when he was slightly above average with 1 OAA. Out of all infielders this year, Ernie Clement has the 9th most outs above average at 13, and Gimenez ranks 12th with 10. Bo Bichette was not just worse than them, he was worse than every other infielder in the league, with -13 outs above average. So, assuming you are a rather intelligent being, which player would you immediately cross off the list for the most important infield position? I don't think we need to say the answer at this point. It doesn't take a genius to see that Bichette shouldn't be at short, and I promise the Blue Jays GM Ross Atkins and the over 100 other members of their front office sees it too. They just have other things on the line. They have committed to Bichette being their star shortstop for half a decade now, so switching up now might have some backlash. Not only that, but they also want to keep Bichette happy, who obviously wants to continue playing at shortstop. We can also look more into why this happens by looking at the most famous case of this phenomenon, dating back to 2004 when the Yankees traded for Alex Rodriguez. The year before, in 2003, Jeter had negative 13 defensive runs saved, while A-Rod had a positive 8 at the shortstop position. Though the Yankees decided that it would be Rodriguez that would move off of the position and not Jeter. Why? Well, Jeter was the captain and leader of the team, and he was also a pretty good hitter. The fans would have been upset, Jeter would have been upset, and it was a move that the Yankees decided would be better for the team. Though in hindsight, the move probably made everything worse. Jeter's defense was not good since A-Rod joined, accumulating negative 149 defensive runs saved before retiring in 2014. Rodriguez was above average at third with the Yankees, putting up 9 defensive runs saved. We will never actually know how good or bad Jeter would have been at third base or possibly second base if the Yankees had moved him there, but it would have most likely generated a better outcome than this. Ultimately, the team would have won a few more games, just like the Marlins did. This outline works the same for the Blue Jays situation. Bichette is about to be a free agent, so theoretically, he would want to stick at shortstop to increase his value, though I doubt many teams will be pursuing him to play shortstop anyway. A team is going to pay for his bat at the end of the day, not his glove. If he had showcased his ability to play a different position at even just an average level, I strongly believe his market value would increase. Just ask Xavier Edwards. This year, he struggled at the plate compared to last year, as he was a below average hitter with a 695 OPS. Though because of his new defensive position, he still had a more valuable season than last year when he had an 820 OPS. Now, he did play around double the games this year, but a 3-WAR season with these offensive numbers that are more sustainable for Edwards will mean he can set himself up for a nice free agency contract in a few years. With his defensive floor, a 3-WAR season shouldn't be that hard to hit, especially with his base running as well, and a 3-WAR player can expect to get a pretty good contract in free agency. All while the Marlins, his team, also got even better, winning 79 games this year, a number that was a lot higher than people expected it to be. And some of that surprise comes down to this simple fix that other MLB teams are scared to make. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.